Hello everyone, my name is Ian and you're watching Big Rock Moto. Thanks so much for tuning in today, and if you're new here and you like this kind of content, I hope you'll consider subscribing. Now, before you ask, yes, my voice is a little bit weird because I'm running a cold. Don't worry, I am getting better, and rumors of my death have been greatly exaggerated. This is my brand new 2024 Honda Transalp, and I've bought it for long-term review here on the channel. Today's video is going to be an introduction to this long-term series. I'm going to tell you how much I paid for the bike. I'm going to give you my in-depth plan for the next maybe 7 or 8 episodes with the bike and tell you what to expect in those video episodes. I'm also going to run through some very early things that I think seem to be really great about the bike, and some very early things that I'm a little bit concerned with. And also, this is your chance to ask questions about the bike. I may not be able to get to your question right now. It may be something that I have to do more testing to have more time to be able to answer, but put them down below and I'll start gathering all these up. All right, so why did I purchase this Honda Transalp? Well, number one, over 10,000 of you here on YouTube voted in a poll that I put on my community page. I gave you an option of bikes that I could purchase for long-term review, in addition to the BMW R1300 GS, which I'm already committed to buying for long-term test, which should be coming, hopefully, fingers crossed, by the end of the year, maybe January at the latest. So I said, which other bike do you want me to purchase? And this was by far in the lead. So I went out last week and bought this bike. Also, I think that being Honda's brand new midsize adventure bike, really the only midsize adventure bike they've brought to the United States pretty much ever, except for the CB500X, which is sort of a smaller adventure bike. And with the exception of a Transalp, they did bring a Transalp XL600 here for maybe like 2 years, but that was like 20 or 30 years ago. So essentially, this is Honda's answer to the T7, the V-Strom 800, and bikes like that. And I think it's super, super important to give this bike a full test. So a lot of you are going to wonder, so let's just talk about this right now. How much did I end up paying for this Transalp? So I think I made a post, I can't remember if it was on Patreon or publicly on YouTube or Instagram, but I was talking about, attempting to purchase one of these after the poll results had come in, and I was frustrated with some of the prices I was seeing. So keep in mind, I live in Southern California, which has year-round riding, and motorcycle prices and dealership costs just tend to be a little bit higher. Rent is higher for the dealerships. All these things factor in. Wages have to be a certain level. So keep that in mind. Now, I paid $12,500 out the door for this bike. Now, before you freak out, keep in mind that that includes taxes, which for me were about $800. What Honda charges for freight, which is basically destination, which the dealership doesn't control, that was $600. So right there, that's $1,400. And then all the DMV stuff, that's another maybe $400 or so. It was very high here in California. So already, just with taxes and fees, not any dealership cost at all, this bike's already $11,800. And then the rest of the difference there between that and $12,500 was basically what the dealership charged me for their setup fee. So dealerships, most all dealerships have to charge some amount for uncrating the bike, setting them up, and covering some of their costs there. And so I thought ultimately this was a good deal for me in context of the other dealers that are in Southern California. I did make a few other calls. Dealers were just starting to get these in. They're very proud of them, that they have them, and they're not wanting to negotiate on pricing. I got some quotes as high as $14,000 out the door. So in context, $12,500 was actually a really good number. Okay, so let's talk about the videos I have planned for the bike. Now, this is subject to change, and I can almost guarantee you it will change. But let me kind of tell you right now, I've got this all written in my notes here, how I have these videos structured out. There's a lot to cover on this bike, and I can't do it all in 1 or 2 videos, so I'm going to break it out over a half dozen or so, a little bit more than that, episodes. So episode 2, the next episode, what I'm going to do is do 0 modifications to the bike. We're going to take the bike out on the highway and off-road and just see how it is completely bone stock, give you a first ride impressions vlog, and that's going to be it for episode 2. Episode 3 is going to be basically in-depth technical overview of the motorcycle. I'm going to put it on the new scale system that I bought and see if Honda's weight is actually accurate. I'm going to go through the tour and features of the bike, show you how everything on the bike works. We'll do a drop and lift test before we put on the crash bars. We'll see how things are going to impact if you don't have crash protection. We're going to talk about the tires being tubed instead of tubeless. We're going to look at some of the ground clearance issues. We're going to, again, I already mentioned, we're going to talk about the weight. We're going to look at the riding position and the ergonomics, the legroom, handlebar position. We're going to get Maggie on board to see how it looks with a passenger. We're going to take a look at the air filter access on the bike, which I can already tell you is a little bit concerning there. We're going to do or look at the oil change procedure, maybe not do the oil change at that point if we don't have the 600 miles on. Talk about some of the maintenance things like the valve check. I'll show you the chain adjustment on the bike. So we're going to really talk about what is it actually like to live with this thing and maintain it. Is it an easy bike to maintain at home in your garage? We're going to look through some interesting things that I found in an owner's manual. I'll show you how sort of the riding mode and the TFT and all that stuff works. We'll hopefully take a quick night ride, take a look at the headlight performance. We'll take the seat off, look at what's under the seat here, take a look at the battery and the toolkit. So yeah, it's going to be an in-depth technical overview, a deeper dive than anyone else has really done on the Transalp yet. So that's episode 2. Episode 3, we're going to do a long distance ride on the highway to test the seating comfort, the riding position, the wind protection. We're going to try playing with the windshield. We'll try putting my clip-on visor and see if that helps. We'll maybe experiment with different helmets. We'll see how this thing is on a long day at higher speeds on the highway. Episode 4, my plan is episode 4 to be the break-in service. I'll show you what it's like doing the break-in service on the bike. I already have the oil and filter here behind me. We'll talk about the cost of that and the procedure for doing that. Episode 5, by then I will have the Outback Motortech crash bars and skid plate on the bike, and hopefully Barkbuster handguards, fingers crossed they come in time. We'll have the crash protection. We're going to do a total off-road torture test, way more than I've done before. Sand, single track, rocks. We're going to throw the bike on the ground. We're going to really beat this thing hard. We're going to find its limits and use it beyond the performance envelope that Honda's really intended to push and see what this thing can do and how durable is it, how tough is it, even though most people aren't going to treat it that badly. Episode 6, I think we'll do like a 1,000 mile review, maybe kind of cover pros and cons at that point. We'll go back and talk about some of the issues that we're concerned about at the beginning, like there's no cruise control, there's no tubeless wheels, the ground clearance is limited, why did they route the exhaust under the engine, is that a problem? Some other things like that, the electronics that where your ABS and your traction control reset when you restart the bike with the key, is that really going to be annoying or not? We'll know more about that by then. In episode 7, I'm going to do an in-depth comparison between this bike and all of its competitors. So the Tenere 700, the V-Strom 800DE, Honda's own Africa Twin, Honda's own CB500X, the Tuareg 660, bikes in this mid-size adventure category. We're really going to break it down and compare how this stacks up to those and which bike might be right for you. Episode 8, and again, keep in mind this is just a basic structure. This could all change and the order of it could change. But I think episode 8 will be talking about how I've improved the bike, what changes I've done to make it work for adventure riding. So the crash protection, the comfort modifications, tires that we're going to change, different foot pegs, probably swap in a lithium battery to save some weight, see how much weight we can save there. Maybe change the exhaust, maybe get a high mount exhaust. I'm not really sure yet. We'll look at the luggage. And also potentially in this is going to be the suspension. So at that point, we might be looking at doing some changes to springs, some changes to damping, maybe complete suspension swap out. I've been in early talks with Tractive about possibly demoing some of their stuff on this bike. So we'll see how that goes. But I do want to know what the potential, and I know you all want to know, what is the potential of the Transalp beyond what it is in stock form, which reportedly is a little bit soft, a little bit low to the ground, but still capable enough and has a good engine and all that. But we're just a little bit concerned about how this is really going to stack up off-road compared to some of the competition. All right, so there's already quite a bit of information and quite a bit of other videos and reviews out there about the Transalp. Now, I can guarantee you that my review series is going to be the most in-depth and probably the most adventurous in terms of really testing its capabilities out of all the reviews out there. But there are some very early things that I think have stood out to me in terms of things that seem really positive about this bike, and we're going to test those theories. And also some things that through my research or through kind of reading through the manual, looking over the bike the past couple days myself, that I found out to be sort of what are the early things I'm really excited about, happy about, and what are some early things that I'm a little bit concerned about. So the things that I'm really excited about I think are going to be great. The engine seems wonderful, powerful, sounds great, and it's going to have the Honda reliability. Now, we are down 7 horsepower from the European spec. Some people have said that's a spark arrestor, some people have said it's the ECU. I don't know exactly, but we're going to find out. And if there's a way to increase that power up to the 90 horsepower, I certainly would like to do that because I don't like missing those horsepower. But the engine should be something really positive. Other positives we have the build quality, the durability, the feeling of low weight. It really does feel very light and it does not feel top heavy. So again, I love the T7, no offense to anybody who has one. T7 is kind of a top heavy motorcycle. This doesn't feel that way, but now keep in mind this bike is new and it doesn't have all the crash bars and stuff like that on it. So once we go to add that stuff, that equation could definitely change. The bike seems also very comfortable to begin with. The wind protection seems quite good. The TFD has a lot of good information, although it's a little bit on the small side. And overall, it just feels like a bike that's going to be pretty accessible, pretty easy to use. Also, the seat height is pretty reasonable. Now, what are some early concerns that we all have about the Transalp? And I'm not the only one who has these concerns, right? We can look at the exhaust, how it's routed underneath the engine. Also, the sump hangs down low. It's got this thing that sticks out on the bottom. So having a good skid plate is going to be mandatory to take this thing off-road in any real way. And we're going to be doing that. But how much ground clearance do we lose when we put the skid plate on? How much ground clearance do we realistically have after the suspension sag and the skid plate and all that relative to some other adventure bikes on the market? And is that going to be a limitation? That's something that we're going to have to look at. Another concern I have is the air filter access. I can already tell you the air filter is partially under the gas tank. It is not like the Tuareg where there's a panel to remove it. It's not like the V-Strom 800 where it's right under the seat, or the KTM 890 where it's right under the seat, or the T7 where it's under the seat. So there's a little bit more work involved there, but we're going to look and see what that means. We might just be able to tilt up the front of the gas tank to get to it, but we're going to find out in a few days. We're concerned about the suspension. You know, Honda recently with models like the CRF 300L Rally and other bikes that they've had out there, they seem to be overly soft on the spring rates on the suspension and really lack damping for good control. But we'll see how the Transalp is, and there's already aftermarket opportunities to improve that, starting at the lower cost levels, which is changing the springs, and then going all the way up to full suspension replacement. Another concern I already have after testing the bike out a little bit here at home is the motorcycle does not hold, if you turn the ABS off, it does not hold that setting when you reset the key, or when you turn the key off and on. It does not also hold your traction control. If you turn the traction control off, that is, if you have it on level 1, the lowest intervention, it will remember that. But if you disable traction control or disable ABS, unfortunately and very disappointingly, it does not remember that. I can already say that's going to be kind of a real complaint of mine in terms of riding this bike in the dirt. All right, so that's really about what I have for you in this first video. Now, I've talked about all the stuff that I hope to cover within this review series over the next 6 months. If there are things outside of that, in addition to that, other concerns or questions that you have, or you just need an answer on something right away, you're looking for that, put that down below. And I'll try to get back to you, but again, I do get a lot of messages and comments on my channel at this point, so it's hard for me to keep up. If you want to support this kind of independent journalism and reporting and long-term bike purchases here for review on the channel, there are ways to support Big Rock Moto, and that's in the pinned comment and the description below. I would appreciate you pitching in on those things if you want to continue to see long-term reviews and bike purchases here on the channel. All right, well, I think that about does it. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to go try to get this video edited, get this out, and then maybe take a nap and try to get over this cold so I can get to testing this bike. Thanks so much for watching. Ride safe, and I'll see you out there.